Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to be exploring a topic that I think is pretty universally relevant, and that is the concept of discipline.
It's one of those words you hear a lot.
Right, exactly. And I think a lot of us have, kind of preconceived notions about what discipline is all about,
Mm.
but we're going to kind of try to dig a little deeper today and see what we can uncover. And we've got some really interesting sources for this.
Yes, we do.
We've got some verses from both the Old and New Testaments,
Okay.
as well as some eternal truths, just to kind of give us a little bit of a different perspective.
Very cool.
Yeah, so I'm hoping we can kind of weave all of that together and see, what kind of,
A tapestry.
yeah, exactly, a tapestry of discipline we can weave.
Yeah, I love it.
So, let's see, where should we start? I guess one of the things that I found really interesting was in the book of Proverbs, chapter 3, verses 11 and 12 say, "My son, do not despise the Lord's discipline, and do not resent his rebuke, because the Lord disciplines those he loves as a father the son he delights in."
That's such a powerful image right off the bat.
I know.
I think the first thing that jumps out at me there is this idea that discipline comes from love.
Yeah.
It's not about punishment. It's not about, being mean or harsh. It's about guiding someone towards something better, something that's ultimately for their own good.
Yeah, it makes me think of like, a parent correcting a child.
Exactly.
It's not because they want to hurt them or make them feel bad. It's because they want them to learn and grow.
Right. It's about helping them to develop into the best version of themselves.
And I think that's something that maybe we don't always associate with discipline.
No, I think a lot of times we think of it as something negative or restrictive.
Right.
But what we're seeing here is that it can actually be a really positive force in our lives.
Yeah, and this idea of discipline as love comes up again in the New Testament in Hebrews chapter 12, verses 5 and 6, talk about not taking the Lord's discipline lightly because he disciplines those he loves and considers his sons and daughters.
I love that phrasing, sons and daughters.
Yeah.
It really emphasizes that personal relationship that God has with each of us.
It's like he's invested in our growth.
He is. He wants us to succeed. He wants us to reach our full potential.
But that doesn't mean it's always going to be easy, right?
Of course not.
There's going to be challenges along the way. There's going to be times when we have to push ourselves, when we have to make tough choices.
Absolutely. And that's where I think the concept of faith comes in.
Okay.
Because trusting that God has a plan for us, even when we don't understand it, even when it's difficult, that takes a lot of faith.
Yeah, it's about surrendering to his will.
Exactly. And that surrender isn't always easy.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
But I think that's part of what makes it so powerful.
It is. It requires us to let go of our own ego, our own need to control everything.
And to trust in something bigger than ourselves.
Exactly. And I think that's a really important point to emphasize because a lot of times we think of discipline as being all about self-control,
Right.
but what we're seeing here is that it also involves a certain amount of surrender.
Yeah, like letting go of the reins a little
Well,
bit.
Exactly.
And trusting that we're being guided in the right direction.
Precisely. And that trust, that faith, that's what gives us the strength to persevere even when things get tough.
Makes me think of that idea of steadfast endurance.
Yes.
Like in Revelation 14:12, where it says, "This calls for patient endurance on the part of the people of God who keep his commands and remain faithful to Jesus."
It's not a sprint, it's a marathon.
Exactly.
And we need that inner strength, that resilience to keep going even when we feel like giving up.
It's like we're building a spiritual muscle.
I love that analogy.
The more we exercise it, the stronger it becomes.
Absolutely. And that strength, that resilience, that's what allows us to overcome challenges, to grow, to become the best versions of ourselves.
And it's not just limited to the spiritual realm, is it?
No, not at all.
This idea of building strength through discipline applies to all areas of life.
Think about self-discipline, for example.
Right.
Whether we're talking about our physical health, our finances, our relationships, our careers, self-discipline is essential for success in any area. It's the foundation for growth.
Absolutely.
Right.
And it's something that we can all cultivate regardless of our background or beliefs.
Yeah, it's like that verse in 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 7. Train yourself for godliness.
It's a call to action.
It is.
It's a reminder that we're not just passive recipients of grace. We have to actively work towards it.
So it's not just about faith, it's about action.
Exactly. Faith without works is dead.
Right.
And I think that's a really important point to emphasize because sometimes we can fall into the trap of thinking that if we just believe hard enough, everything will work out.
Yeah, like magical thinking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the truth is that faith requires effort.
It does. It requires us to show up and do the work.
And that work often involves discipline,
Yeah, making those tough choices even when we don't feel like it.
putting in the time and effort even when it's hard.
And I think that's what ultimately leads to growth,
It does.
both spiritual growth and personal growth.
Absolutely, because both require us to step outside of our comfort zones, to challenge ourselves, to persevere. And that perseverance, that commitment to the process, that's what leads to a sense of deep fulfillment.
It is. It's about becoming the best version of ourselves.
And I think that's something that we all strive for in some way or another.
I think so too.
So whether we're talking about our spiritual lives, our careers, our relationships, discipline plays a vital role in helping us achieve our goals.
It does. And it's something that we can all benefit from no matter where we are in our journey.
I like that.
Yeah.
You know, it makes me think of that proverb, direct your children onto the right path, and when they are older, they will not leave it.
Proverbs 22.6.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful reminder that discipline is not just about ourselves.
It's about those we love and care about.
It's about leaving a legacy.
It is. It's about investing in the future.
And it's about modeling the behavior that we want to see in others.
Which brings us to our next point, discipline and leadership.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's interesting because when we talk about leadership, we often think of qualities like charisma and vision. But I think discipline is just as important, if not more so.
I agree with you.
Because a leader who lacks discipline is likely to be ineffective.
Right. They might have all the right ideas, but if they can't execute them, it doesn't really matter.
Exactly. And that's where discipline comes in.
Yeah. It's about having the self-control to stay focused, to persevere through challenges, to make tough decisions.
It's about being accountable to yourself and to those you lead.
And it's about setting a good example,
Absolutely.
because people are much more likely to follow a leader who walks the talk.
They are. And that's why discipline is so crucial for effective leadership.
It's the foundation upon which everything else is built.
You know, it reminds me of that verse in Matthew 20.26.
Oh, yeah.
Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant.
That's a powerful statement.
It is. It completely flips the traditional idea of leadership on its head.
Yeah, instead of being about power and control, it's about service and humility.
Exactly. And I think that's a really important distinction to make because true leadership is not about bossing people around.
Right. It's about empowering them.
It's about helping them to reach their full potential.
And it's about serving a greater good.
Absolutely. And I think that's something that we often forget in our modern society.
We do. We tend to glorify those who are in positions of power.
We do.
But true leadership is not about power, it's about service.
Exactly. And I think that's a message that we need to hear more often.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And I think it's a message that's particularly relevant in today's world.
Yeah, because we're facing so many challenges as a society.
We are. And we need leaders who are willing to put the needs of others before their own.
Leaders who are willing to make tough choices, even when they're unpopular.
Leaders who are willing to serve.
Exactly. And I think that's where discipline comes in.
It does. It's the foundation for servant leadership.
It is. Because without discipline, it's impossible to truly put the needs of others first.
That's a great point. And it makes me think of another verse. Luke 12.48. It says, "But the one who does not know and does things deserving punishment will be beaten with few blows. From everyone who has been given much, much will be demanded. And from the one who has been entrusted with much, much more will be asked."
Well, that's good.
So it's not just about having the right intentions.
Right.
It's about being responsible with the power that we've been given.
And using it wisely.
Exactly. And that takes discipline.
You know, that's really making me think about the connection between discipline and prosperity.
Ooh, that's an interesting one.
Yeah. Because when we think of prosperity, we often think of material wealth.
Right. Money, possessions, all that good stuff.
Yeah, but I think there's a deeper level to prosperity.
There is. It's about well-being.
Exactly. It's about fulfillment. It's about abundance in all areas of life.
It's about living a life of purpose and meaning.
And I think discipline plays a vital role in achieving that kind of prosperity.
It does, because it allows us to make choices that are in alignment with our values.
It helps us to prioritize the things that are truly important to us.
And it gives us the strength to overcome the challenges that inevitably come our way.
It's like that verse in Deuteronomy 8.18.
Oh, yeah.
But thou shalt remember the Lord thy God, for it is he that giveth thee power to get wealth, that he may establish his covenant, which he sware unto thy fathers as it is this day.
That's a great one.
I know.
It's a reminder that everything we have comes from God.
Yeah, and that we should be using our resources wisely.
Exactly. And
Oh,
that includes our time, our talents, our energy, everything.
it's about being good stewards of what we've been given.
And that stewardship requires discipline,
It does. It requires us to be mindful of our choices
to be intentional with our actions.
and to always be striving to use our gifts for the greater good.
Absolutely. And I think that's a beautiful way to think about prosperity.
I do too.
It's not just about accumulating wealth.
It's about using our wealth to make a positive impact on the world.
And that's something that we can all do regardless of our financial situation.
Absolutely.
Right.
Because true prosperity is not about how much money we have.
It's about how we use the resources that we've been given.
And that's a choice that we all have the power to make.
It is, and it's a choice that requires discipline.
Yeah, it does. And speaking of choices,
Yes.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this passage from Ephesians 5:15-16. Therefore be careful how you walk, not as unwise men, but as wise, making the most of your time, because the days are evil.
Wow, that's a powerful one.
It is.
It's a reminder that our time here is precious.
Yeah. And that we shouldn't waste it.
We shouldn't. We should be using it wisely.
And that takes discipline.
Absolutely.
It takes discipline to say no to the things that don't matter
To prioritize the things that do.
and to make the most of every moment.
I love that.
Me too. It's like that saying, time is our most valuable asset.
It is. And we can choose to invest it wisely or we can squander it.
And that choice is up to us.
It is. And it's a choice that we make every single day.
Yeah, and I think discipline is the key to making the right choices.
It is, because it gives us the power to resist temptation
And overcome procrastination.
and to stay focused on our goals.
And you know, that makes me think about something.
What's that?
I wonder if there are areas in our lives where we might be unknowingly leaking energy.
Ooh, leaking energy. That's an interesting concept.
Yeah, like maybe we're spending too much time on social media.
Or watching TV.
Or maybe we're just not taking care of ourselves physically or emotionally.
Those are all great examples.
Yeah, and I think it's important to be aware of those energy leaks
Absolutely.
because they can really drain us and prevent us from achieving our full potential.
They can. And I think discipline can help us to plug those leaks.
It can. It can help us to be more mindful of how we're spending our time and energy.
And to make choices that are in alignment with our values.
Yeah, and I think that's ultimately what discipline is all about.
It is. It's about empowerment
It's about taking control of our lives.
and creating the kind of future that we want.
Exactly. And you know, it's funny.
What is it?
A lot of what we've been talking about really overlaps with those eternal truths that we mentioned earlier.
You're right.
Like, for example, one of them is, trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths.
Proverbs 3.56.
Yeah.
And that trust, that reliance on God, that's itself a form of surrender.
It is.
It's a form of discipline,
It's acknowledging that we don't have all the answers,
that we need guidance.
and that sometimes the wisest course of action is to submit to something bigger than ourselves.
And that surrender can be incredibly liberating.
It can. It can free us from the burden of trying to control everything.
From the fear of the unknown.
And it can open us up to possibilities that we may never have imagined,
It's about aligning ourselves with a higher power,
with a divine plan.
with a source of wisdom that far exceeds our own.
And that's such a powerful reminder that even though discipline might require effort,
It might.
it's ultimately a path to freedom,
To abundance.
to a life filled with purpose and meaning.
Absolutely.
And that's something that I think we can all aspire to.
I think so too.
It really is amazing when you think about it, how discipline can actually lead to freedom.
It's a bit of a paradox, isn't it?
Mm.
But that's what makes it so profound, I think. It challenges us to reframe our understanding of discipline, to see it not as a limitation, but as a source of empowerment.
I like that. A source of empowerment. What does that look like in practice?
Well, it starts with recognizing that we have the power to choose. We can choose our thoughts, our actions, our attitudes. We can choose to react impulsively, or we can choose to respond with intention and wisdom. We can choose to be ruled by our fears, or we can choose to be guided by our values.
So it's about taking ownership of our lives, wouldn't you say?
Precisely. It's about recognizing that we're not just passive recipients of whatever life throws at us. We have agency. We have the ability to shape our experiences, to make choices that align with our deepest desires and our highest selves.
That's incredibly empowering. It means that even in the face of challenges, even when things feel out of control, we still have a choice.
We always have a choice. And discipline is the tool that allows us to make choices that lead us toward a life of greater freedom, purpose, and meaning.
It's been fascinating to explore all these different facets of discipline with you today. We've seen how it connects to faith, love, personal growth, leadership, even prosperity. But at its core, it seems like discipline is really about taking responsibility for ourselves and for the kind of life we want to create.
I think that's a beautiful way to put it.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a question to ponder. If discipline is indeed a form of love, a path to growth, and a key to unlocking your full potential, what area of your life might benefit from a little more of it? What small step can you take today to embrace discipline in a way that feels empowering and life-giving?
That's a wonderful question to reflect on. And I would just add that it doesn't have to be a huge, overwhelming change. Even small, consistent acts of discipline can have a ripple effect, creating positive momentum and leading to remarkable transformations over time.
Thank you for joining us on this journey of discovery. We hope it sparked some new insights and inspired you to embrace the power of discipline in your own life. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep choosing the path that leads to your best self.
You know, it's interesting because when we talk about discipline, a lot of times we focus on the effort, the hard work, the sacrifice.
Right.
But I think it's important to remember that there's also a sense of joy that comes with discipline.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Well, when we're disciplined, we're able to accomplish things that we wouldn't be able to
Yeah.
otherwise.
We're able to reach our goals.
Exactly. And that sense of accomplishment, that feeling of progress that brings a lot of joy.
It's like that feeling of satisfaction when you finally finish a project that you've been working on for a long time.
Or when you reach a fitness goal that you've been striving for.
It's a really good feeling.
It is. And I think that's part of what makes discipline so sustainable.
Yeah.
Because it's not just about deprivation or restriction.
Right.
It's about creating a life that we love, a life that's filled with purpose and meaning.
And that makes all the effort worthwhile.
Exactly. And I think that's something that's really important to emphasize because a lot of times people think of discipline as being all about self-denial.
Yeah, like punishing yourself.
Exactly. But it's not about that at all.
It's about self-love.
It is. It's about taking care of ourselves both physically and mentally.
And it's about setting ourselves up for success.
Absolutely. And I think that's a really beautiful way to think about discipline.
I do too. And you know, it makes me think of something else.
What's that?
We've been talking a lot about the benefits of discipline.
We have.
But what about the cost of indiscipline?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah, because I think it's important to consider both sides of the coin.
Absolutely. Because when we're undisciplined, it costs us in a lot of ways.
Right. It can cost us our health, our relationships, our finances, our time.
Our reputation even.
Yeah. And it can also lead to a lot of regret.
It can. Because when we look back on our lives, we often regret the things that we didn't do.
The chances that we didn't take.
The goals that we didn't pursue.
And a lot of times that's because we lack the discipline to follow through.
Exactly. So I think it's really important to be aware of the cost of indiscipline.
Yeah, because it can be really high.
It can.
And it's something that we want to avoid if at all possible.
Absolutely.
So I guess the takeaway here is that discipline is an investment.
It is. It's an investment in ourselves, in our future, in our happiness.
And it's an investment that pays off in countless ways.
It does, both in the short term and in the long term.
Well, this has been a really enlightening conversation.
It has been.
I feel like I've learned a lot about discipline today.
Me too.
And I hope our listeners have as well.
I hope so too.
So as we wrap up, I want to leave you with this thought.
Okay.
Discipline is not a destination. It's a journey.
It is.
It's something that we have to cultivate and practice every single day.
And it's a journey that's worth taking.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because it leads us to a life of freedom, purpose, and joy.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.
It's been a pleasure.
And we'll see you next time.